Hello, Derek Wachter, author, self-publishing, horror, suspense, thriller genre, and historical fiction. So, a young married couple in Olympia, Washington, their lives are kind of growing separate apart from one another. One day, the husband experiences an auto accident, leaves him paralyzed from the waist down. So, to kind of rekindle their relationship and kind of come back together again, they decided to sell their place in the city, move off the grid into the country, out in the mountains, live off the grid in a cabin out in the middle of the woods, and kind of restart their life over again. But when they do that, there's a group of Sasquatch creatures out in the forest that do not want them there, and it's just hell on earth for them after that. Elwha, Washington. So if you're over in the Port Angeles area, you can find it on Amazon, internet searches, local stores here in town, Encore Books. Gerald's up in Ellensburg also carries copies. So you can find digital audiobooks. There's audiobooks as well, and regular books.
Okay, hi, I'm Vic Kusske, K-U-S-S-K-E. I had 26 years of law enforcement service here in the city of Yakima. I started in 1972 and was assigned as a foot patrolman downtown. And I did that for 8 years. That first book that I wrote there out front, The Fight for Yakima, is about some of that work, some of the things that I did. Walking the beat. One of the things that happened that was interesting to me was, I think it was in 1973 at about August, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I came walking out of an alley, and I looked out onto the street, and there was a young lady standing out at 3 o'clock in the morning wearing a pair of shorts and tube top, looking up and down the street, which I figured might be a prostitute. And so I thought I'd just watch her for a while. Pretty soon she spotted me and ran into the building. And she hadn't really committed any crime, but I followed her in there. She went down a hallway and then down some stairs down into the basement. I followed her there, and she disappeared in this basement. I couldn't figure out where she went. And it was a basement below a bar, and it was kind of a strange, kind of creepy place. And I was by myself, and I had this big radio about that big and that tall with a long antenna. I wasn't sure if anybody would hear me if I called out on it. But I got to looking around, and there was this big piece of furniture against one wall. It was big enough for her to hide in. So I pulled the door open, and they had taken the back off of that piece of furniture, and it was an entrance to a tunnel. And I shined my light in there. All I saw was just dark, and I didn't want to go in that tunnel, so I just kind of let it go. And I went and told my sergeant about it later. I was in my 20s, and I think he'd worked there at the police department for a number of years. And he said, yeah, there's tunnels all over under Yakima. He said, but don't go in them. He said, they're falling down, and he said, they're kind of dangerous. So that was kind of the start of my career in Yakima. And that first book is, half of that book is about the adventures of a downtown foot patrolman. And the other half is about a homicide that happened, a lady that was killed that I followed. I didn't investigate it myself, but I followed it, and I knew the players, and I wrote about that in the book also. It's historical fiction, and I thought I'd just write one book, but as it turned out, I ended up writing 5. Well, they can find them at local bookstores, Inklings or Encore, or you can find it online at Amazon, and here at Yakima Pines.
So my name is Ellen Allmendinger, and I write history books about the Yakima Valley. My first book is probably the most interesting to some. It's called Hidden History of Yakima. It goes over our hidden history of our Chinatown, our Japantown, and our historic district, and talks a little bit about the buildings that were located in there, as well as some of the people. I also write random other history books, like about murder, mayhem, and We Went West, which is about 40 Civil War soldiers that came out west and settled after the war. Of the 40 Civil War vets that I chose to write about, there's over 220 in the valley that arrived here. I would say in my book there's 4 African American Civil War vets. I would say Jasper Evans is probably one of them, but it's hard to pick because all these people were founders of cities and towns. Like the founder of Glebe was a Civil War vet. Like our mayors were Civil War vets. Our people that were in politics, our city leaders, they were all Civil War vets. So it's kind of hard to pick one, but I'll probably have to say Jesse Evans, just because of the fact of Civil War is hard enough, but to be an African American Civil War vet and come out here and be a minority and farm and do the kind of things he did is especially honored. You can find my books here at Yakima Finds, or they're all over the web at various stores. You can also find them at local bookstores. I believe Walgreens even has some of them. Yeah.